Yo, what's good, y'all? You dub back here again here in 2019. Let's get it, bringing y'all more fresh new content. That's more of a serious take on the video, a little bit less on the entertaining side, and more to bring y'all an unpackaged, objective perspective on the subject matter that we have. Now, y'all know I'll be objective. Y'all know bringing the facts and evidence, but sometimes I'll be more comedic and whatnot. But we ain't doing this. It's all serious business, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I need to start doing more videos on this, on the nature of affairs. I almost a couple weeks ago did my top 10 ranking, pound for pound ranking of the UFC, but I'm glad I didn't because stuff, shook up divisions. Okay, stuff shook up divisions, and like Khabib's current W, I'd have to rate him a little bit higher than initially I would. Still not pound for pound number one, which we can get back to, ladies and gentlemen. Daniel Cormier, I would have him probably around top three, top four, but he has to get dropped off because he lost to Stipe, which isn't a shocker, but we'll get going back into with all these moving parts and all these moving stories. Now, I follow Chael Sonnen. Okay, I rock with him heavily. I think he makes phenomenal commentary, phenomenal perspective, especially from a former fighter. At this point, he's retired, obviously. But, he talks about current narratives, okay? Most of the MMA media coverage that you get, that's why I need to start doing these kind of videos, because most of the coverage you get always is on these current narratives. No one's really looking at the holistic perspective on the history going back years. All right, they may reference historical stuff, but they're reasonably so. Some of it's a little bit clickbait. Some of it's, their news and news has to update with you. But no one's taking a step back and going, wait a minute. This stuff has been going on. No one's like me calling out what's been going on. Like, I've called certain fights. I knew what was going to happen. I knew Conor was going to beat Nate Diaz. All right. I knew Conor, the second fight. I knew Conor was going to beat Eddie Alvarez. I knew he was going to beat Jose Aldo. Okay. I knew Holly Holm was going to beat Ronda Rousey. I didn't know that Cyborg was inherently going to lose that man in Nunez, but the right was on the wall. Stipe, I was not shocked. Even though I had DC winning that fight, I was not surprised that Stipe won. Dustin Poirier, I thought he could possibly win, but I favored Khabib, But I had, I know can get into more of the Khabib stuff, but I have certain predictions, and I'm often right. Same thing with boxing. Boxing is a little bit more complicated because sometimes people show up that you don't expect to show up. But MMA is not so much. Even though there's more tools don't mean better tools. More tools don't mean more focus. With boxing, I predicted Andy Ruiz Jr. to actually win that fight against Anthony Joshua. And why do I bring it up as relevant? Because boxing, you have to bring your better tools that night to win. Buster Douglas beat Iron Mike Tyson because he brought the better tools that night. When in the Muhammad Ali Smoking Joe Frazier trilogy, whoever had the better tools that night took that home that W. Muhammad Ali defeated Big George Foreman, proving himself, showcasing the greatest of all time, because he brought better tools that night in the Rumble in the Jungle. Now, all that being said, what do we have with Khabib? Yes, we have to start off with Khabib. Why is Khabib not the number one pound for pound? Because number one pound for pound should, by and large, just without question, be John Bones Jones. If you have anybody else but John Bones Jones as the number one at this point in time, you are talking ludicrous. You are talking lunacy. How can you have many consider to be the greatest of all time, the GOAT, and not have him active and still winning, still showing dominance in the light heavyweight division, How do you have him active and not have him as pound for pound the best? It's not like he done taken his step off the gas pedal either. He's fighting tough ass opponents and still doing his damn thing and still showing you, damn, how many tools does this man have in the toolbox? Effective tools in the toolbox. Not, I'm just going to try a whack punch and get clobbered for it. No, I'm going to take on the challenge of someone else. Khabib, to me, maybe top 5. I have a problem with putting Khabib as a top 5 pound for pound fighter. Now, here's why. Because I, number one, have not seen the versatility of Khabib. You can say, well, he hasn't needed it. Sure, but it's mixed martial arts. I need to see what you can fully be able to do. You're like, well, he's dominating performances. There are plenty of fighters who have dominating performances. Conor McGregor. Oh, wait. Let's not use Conor too much in this video. Jose Aldo. Dominant champion. Ronda Rousey. Dominant champions. They were never pound for pound the best to me in their respective, women's division, men's division. They were never the best. Just because you're a dominant champion doesn't make you inherently the best. People get this screwed up and misconstrued. Just because you're the winningest doesn't make you the best. The best means overall skill set. Okay? It means overall skill set. And just because someone beats someone else doesn't mean that person falls off the map. To me, Conor's still around 8 pound for pound best fighter in the world. Because it's very difficult to find more than 7 other fighters who are better than him at this specific time. See what I'm saying? Pound for pound means who is the best, when you look at and put them in the lab next to each other, who's better than whom? The only reason I have Khabib higher than Conor at this point is because Khabib defeated Conor. And it was not as a dominating fashion as many say. That Khabib fight, and why is it still relevant in 2019? Okay? Because, listen, not much has changed in 2019, excuse me. Not much has changed. I have not seen too many. There are a few storylines that I would love to address. Some a little bit different interpretations I have. But here's the thing. Khabib was already favored. Khabib was already undefeated. Khabib was already doing his dominance in his damn thing in the lightweight division that he shouldn't be involved with. I said after he beat Al Iaquinta that he should be in a higher division. I'm not taking away from his greatness, from his legacy, but part of the reason that Khabib is not going to go down legendarily like he should is because he's in a weaker division. Conor's legend skyrocketed because he fought welterweight, because he fought in once again in another organization, won the lightweight crown. Khabib fights dudes who are physically weaker than him. He just mauls and he overpowers. It's the same thing that happened with Ronda Rousey. Okay? I rocks with Ronda in the WWE. She's one of my top 10 favorite pro wrestlers of all time. But in objectivity, I would be saying, all she's doing is dominating, just bullying folk because they're weaker physically than her. She would not be bullying at welterweight. Khabib would not be bullying at welterweight. He would not be bullying at light heavyweight, and he would not be bullying at heavyweight. He just wouldn't. And so what do we have? Okay, Khabib, let's see your actual striking. Let's see your actual wrestling skills, not just grappling and mauling. Let's see what you can do when you're not the physically dominant fighter. We've seen this a lot with boxing. So there's that. I've been stating, and I still hold it, that the notorious Conor McGregor can defeat Khabib. It's just stylistically it's a tough, but Conor was not on his A game. Not taking away from Khabib's performance, but everybody named Mama who was analyzing Conor's like, yo, he's not fully there. He just wasn't, bro. He wasn't light on his feet. He was too flat-footed. He wasn't striking. He wasn't using his leg kicks too much. He got worn down. His ground game, which I'll get back to because I got to talk about Conor later, his ground game was on point as far as his defense, but everything else in the toolbox wasn't there. It was dull knives. And Khabib is a machine who has, I question his chin, but he's got a rock solid granite chin and he's got insane boatloads of stamina. So he just did what he did. Conor wasn't at his best. Khabib was consistent, so Khabib wins. And Khabib won, like I said he needed to, by rear naked choke, just like Nate Diaz. I said he needed to actually showcase submission skills because he doesn't showcase submission skills. All right? Conor brought out the best, like Conor does. Conor brought out the best. Khabib. Am I surprised what happened with Dustin Poirier? No. Conor beat Dustin Poirier. Did I think he had a shot? Yeah, he had a shot, but I expected Khabib to win because of the opponents I've seen Khabib beat. He's beat other styles before, and he just does his damn thing. I'm waiting for a fighter to actually challenge Khabib to force him to not do, which is the fight I've been expecting. This is why things haven't changed, because why hasn't Tony Ferguson fought him? Tony Ferguson, who many consider like the lineal champ of the lightweight division because of what happened to him, just like a Tyson Fury situation in a heavyweight division in boxing currently. Okay, so you have the Tony Ferguson, and yes, absolutely, along with Conor, I think Tony Ferguson win. I said that after Conor lost, or even before, no, before Conor lost. I said, and I still hold that Conor can win. All right, Conor, we've seen great adaptation. He wasn't able to adapt enough, but both of them were getting tired in that fight. So to me, that fight's a wash. Khabib gets a W, but that fight didn't prove anything that I didn't know from both fighters between Conor and Khabib. Conor had he had stamina problems in the middle rounds. We know that. Khabib, I still question his amateur footwork. I still question his amateur striking. That match, that fight did not solve any of my questions between both fighters. Okay? Tony Ferguson's going to be a challenge for Khabib. He hopefully will bring out the questions because he can legitimately strike and he can legitimately wrestle. So if Khabib proves himself in Tony and whichever, or I can say, okay, now Khabib has checked all the boxes for me. Now Khabib, you know what I'm saying? Now I know that Khabib is as legit as people say. Because I still have some questions. Less reservations because he did defeat Conor, but I still have questions about what his total package is. All right. Don't stop this invincible talk because y'all said it with Iron Mike Tyson. You know what happened. You said it with Rowdy Ronda Rousey. You know what happened. Okay, you said it with Jose Aldo. This is not how the fight game works, especially in MMA, even more so than boxing, where dudes be taking mad L's. So you said it with Anthony Joshua too. If you're a boxing fan, that's what I heard. Stop it. Not only do you have Conor, not only do you have Tony Ferguson, Nate Diaz at lightweight, even though he's probably not trying to cut so much. I have Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz striking is legitimate, as well as the man has a granite chin. He's got the stamina for days, and he has wrestling. If go on Khabib can beat Nate Diaz, who really is the kind of fighter who Khabib should be fighting. If he can beat Nate Diaz, now you have my attention. Now, if you want to start talking Khabib is the GOAT, now we have conversation. Okay, now if you want to say he's a pound for pound, you beat Nate Diaz to me, okay, you've proven yourself as what the legit is. The same thing with Tony Ferguson. If he would beat Conor again, all right? Because I actually had Conor up 2-1 in that fight. It's just people, I do believe people were biased against Conor. I really do. You know, they were not watching the same fight I was. This man, Conor McGregor, was stuffing all this man's takedowns. All right? But anyways, enough about that. The last person, a focused Eddie Alvarez, can defeat Khabib. Now, a lot of MMA fans have pushed back and like, whoa, Wander, what are you talking about, bruh? What are you talking about? Eddie Alvarez is washed right now. Hey, what can I say? A focused one. All right, so those are my four that could actually beat Khabib. Everybody in the division else, other than that, probably not. Probably not. And another thing I will talk about why am I bringing up Conor so much? Because number one, after Tony Ferguson, Conor is the fight. You can't tell me anyone. He's like number two. To me, he's number two ranked contender. To me, Tony Ferguson was always number one ranked contender. Dustin Poirier, I understand he was interim champ. You have to respect that. But let's be honest, he was at best third ranked contender. Dude, Conor is he just lost the champ. That is the champion. And he was a two-time champ. He's only 2-1. He's 2-1 in championship fights. And I could go through his resume, but obviously it's Conor. He's the fight down the pipeline. There's talk about GSP, George St. Pierre. Now that I would like to see. If he, if you forget contender, Khabib, George St. Pierre, especially if Tony Ferguson goes down. Oh yeah, I am. Okay. I don't need Conor to come back if we're getting an all-time legend up in here. Okay, now we're talking business. Right now, you're talking about the Conor. I saw this when Conor. He has the reason I'm bringing him up so much is because of his effect on the UFC. When he was in the featherweight division, the division was the top division. There's a bunch of monsters. Then when he moved up to lightweight, same thing happened. All the monsters came out to play. All the attention, all the draw. Okay? Conor brings the spotlight. He brings the attraction, but also He's a kind of dude like a Mike Tyson, Mike Tyson, like a Muhammad Ali, like a Sugar Ray Leonard, like a Floyd Money Mayweather Jr. That just it brings shine on all the monsters. All the absolute monsters wake up and they're ready to play. All right, all the monsters came out to play in the lightweight division, and this is what we see. Because before, were you hearing much about the lightweight division? You was hearing about the heavyweight division. You were hearing about the featherweight division. You were hearing about the light heavyweight division. Right? It's like welterweight. You're now starting to hear because you have people like Ben Askren and Jorge Masvidal. So you'll have that. Well, moving on from Khabib because I want to get to more information, but I thought since it's the hottest button, we need to have a segment because I haven't really talked about what's really going on and my thoughts on that. I had to get all of that out the way. I've been thinking about this for like 2 years, so there you go. Now moving on to that. So nothing's really changed in that regard. Um, let's talk about DC. Let's talk about Daniel Cormier and Stipe lost in the rematch. Now I had DC favored, but I thought Stipe had a legit shot. If he's what people said he was, man drops bombs. Daniel Cormier. Same mistake he always makes with overconfidence. This is why I'm not a fan of Daniel, even though he's one of the greatest wrestlers to ever lace up in MMA. And I say specifically wrestlers and not just grapplers. Him, Brock Lesnar, and a few other guys have done wrestling that I'm like, good God. Bro, how do you beat that? The problem is, this is what happens when you go. See, this is why Khabib is as dominant as he is, and that's why Daniel Cormier will, not be as honored historically as he should. Because Daniel Cormier has a tendency and a habit to go away from what works for him. I'm not saying don't strike at all. It's a good thing. But you're going against a Deontay Wilder type dude. And what do I mean by that? If you know the Bronze Bomber in the heavyweight division, a dude can knock your block off at any time. If he's that dude, Stipe is like people say he's that bad man. If the Stephen A. Smith was on saying it. If Stipe is that powerhouse, why the hell do you think, what possessed you to think you can just square up with him? Why would you keep giving him shots? Take the man down. You ignore your corner. And you don't do what anybody with a mind tells you to do. You got high on your own horse. And you got brought down and dropped. Why would you do that? And so now I have to drop your pound for pound ranking. And now you validated what I've always said. You can't step to Bones. Bones, to me, it was never a rivalry between John Bones Jones and Daniel Cormier. People talking about a mega fight. So you can see him get torched for a third time. This ain't no Manny Pac-Man Pacquiao and not Marquez. It's not one of those situations where although Marquez was losing, you like, bruh, Marquez though. It ain't where there's wins and losses like versus Hands of Stone Roberto Duran versus Sugar Ray Leonard, Smoking Joe Frazier versus Muhammad Ali. One of those situations. It wasn't even a situation where you have a Rocky Marciano going way back versus Jersey Joe Walcott where you just like, I wonder. Bones is dominant. He proved that he just better. In the second fight, if you doubted in the first, the second one you should have known the man came back and he won decisively. Now you got a question about a Stipe versus Cormier trilogy. And this is the issue with the UFC. See, this is where boxing in one area is superior than the UFC. Everybody want to talk about these mega fights. Boxing doesn't work like that. But I'll get to the state of boxing a little bit later versus the UFC, okay? But there's pros and cons of both, but there's a reason that boxing, even with all its issues, and I would say questionable corruption and question marks, this is why it has a bunch of sanctioning bodies, okay? Yes, in the old times, you did have champions, but now I would argue, way more boxers than there ever was. And I like the fact that there are a number of belts. I really, really do. You can say, well, the super fight, this is how you make super fights. You make super fights because you have valid contenders. Okay? You make super fights because you have, this guy can beat this guy. In the old times, that's actually what kind of happened. For example, Smoking Joe Frazier before became the undisputed world heavyweight champion, he had a New York title. It's always been like that in boxing. Just it's exploded into a little bit, you could say watered down with so many belts and so many, but the mark the thing about when you talk about economics, business, anything of that nature, sports, they always regulate themselves. Everything comes back and fixes itself. So you wanted this big DC Brock Lesnar. Now, would I wanted to? Yeah, but I still have Brock Lesnar winning that fight. Brock Lesnar, dude. Brock Lesnar, man. The beast and come. Brock Lesnar is just a different kind of machine. The thing about it is, I respect DC, but it's almost like the hardcore MMA guys want to put DC because honestly, DC is literally Daniel Cormier is literally what hardcore MMA is about. Is what they seek in a guy. They don't seek Bones because he's too athletically. They don't seek Connor because Connor is just so wild. He's a wild man, right? They like guys like DC, right? They don't well, who can I go? You know, Jorge Masvidal. They don't want to Nate Diaz because these guys are too, they're too cutting edge. But the fans love them. The fans love Bones Jones. The fans love Masvidal. We love Masvidal before we love Askren. But Askren's an MMA guy. You see what I'm saying? So I'm just saying you got to be very careful about the narratives being pushed out here. Like I said, I'm gonna give it to y'all objectively. We love the guys who got that fighter's edge, who just, we want it control. We don't want it going outside like the nonsense that Conor has been going on. But we want we want the trash talking. We want the aggressive nature. Bro, we come for fighting. We ain't come for just this, oh, I'm good and I'm not. No! We want to do who body's business and looking to knock somebody block off, bruh. We don't want someone not self-absorbed, because I don't want to paint Daniel Cormier in a bad light. He's charitable and all that good stuff, but he's smug, bro. He's smug. Now, what I will say is I do respect his analysis, because like I said, I respect him, as a wrestler. Not so much as a fighter, but as a wrestler, he's got mad skills. I respect his skills, okay? But as I am not a fan of his. So nothing changed in that regard for me in 2019. Moving on to the next big topic. Badass screen, Jorge Masvidal. Thank you, Jorge Masvidal, for doing what I wanted somebody to do. To bless us. He got blessed. Big Askren got humbled and blessed. Now, this is the beautiful thing. Hopefully we get more humble and stop this dickish persona of Ben Askren, because I've heard he's intelligent and what. Look, he's got wrestling skills, no doubt, but he needs to evolve. He needs to not do what Ronda Rousey did and stay stuck in the mud. And I'm glad he got this behind whooping. He got that ass whooping on him, all right? And it's good for him. I think, people like vulnerability. They like to see human. That's why those four gentlemen I mentioned earlier, the wild side, we love that shit, all right? Because we can relate to that. The thing is, Jorge Masvidal, bruh, he prepped that. He dropped so early in that fight, right? Ben Askren drops to take for a wrestling way beyond. You never do that in the range. That's like cocking back for a haymaker out of range. You never do that. He was cocky. He got lost in the sauce, believed his own hype. Same thing happened to Ronda. I'm referencing Ronda because it was obvious to me about this, right? And she's one of the largest figures in the past 5 years in MMA. So there's that. Ben gets caught with a fine knee. How do you get caught with a fine knee? This was way worse than the Jose Aldo KO by Conor. Way worse. How do you get caught with a flying knee? Do you understand how comic book that is? Do you understand how cartoonish and video game that is? That's something I would try in WWE like 2K19 or something. Raw versus SmackDown, whatever the game's called. Y'all know what I'm talking about. That's something I would try there. That's something you try and practice. That's something that you don't come out with the opening move of the match, of the fight. You don't do that in any level, especially at the highest levels. You don't do that. But that's what happens when it's the psychological effect. So here's a big change. Jorge Masvidal is on the scene. Nate Diaz calls him out. Nate Diaz is back, baby. Nate Diaz. I didn't realize it had been 3 years since Nate Diaz was gone. Right. But Nate Diaz is getting finally. Here's another change. Nate Diaz is finally getting the push he deserves. Nate Diaz is your journeyman. He's a legend, bro. He's a legend. See, there's a few different ways to become a legend. All right. I'm gonna use skateboarding for example. I remember there was Tony Hawk Proving Grounds. Okay, phenomenal game. I suggest everybody play it, especially if you're a fan of skateboarding. If you can get pop in the old PS2 and play that game, I wish they would do like a remake on like the PS4 or something. Proving Grounds to me is one of the all-time underrated games, but we're here for the MMA. The reason I bring that up is because there was pro, there was aggro, which was like street skating. You had street skating, aggro, whatever, and you had rigging, like you build stuff up. But in skating's beautiful. Skateboarding's beautiful because there are different ways to become a legend. You can become a legend like Tony Hawk with the big time shows and the vert and everything. You can become a legend like Nigel Houston, where you know you literally doing street. You're a street skating legend, but he also, he made a pro career, but from a young age, he was just blessed. You could just see. And then there's just the guys who just been killing it for years, who maybe not had the pro career, but you know who they are. Like they're the underground kings. Rap kind of has a way of doing that as well. Okay. And most industries pretty much do. Even I'm pretty sure the fashion industry do it. Where there's the glitz and the glamour, then there's, the like other side to the game, and then there's the underground. Well, the thing about it, like that, you can say Nate Diaz, what makes him a legend amongst, in MMA is still relatively new compared to a lot of these other games out here. When I say games, different industries, right? A lot of these other industries have been around for decades upon decades. MMA, especially UFC, has only been around since '93. So we're talking, I mean, it does have space, but it doesn't, even rap has 4 decades of history. You know what I'm saying? MMA it's going through its third decade, so it's finally arriving at to where rap and a lot of these other industries are. You know what I'm saying? So Nate Diaz, what he's done is pretty much all three. He's like a perfect fusion of all three. If you're even he's winning over hardcore dudes. And when I say the hardcore MMA guys, those are like the purists, okay, of the game. He's winning them over. Okay. He's got the glitz and glam because he's had the fights, bro. He's had the fights. He's had guys like Conor McGregor. That's the big one. But he's had other fights where you just like, damn, this dude's known. He has like the other side to where the more hardcore guys, or you just like, yeah, that's for the example of the street skating. That's the more hardcore. You like, yeah, this dude's about it, right? And or you can say the hardcore is more of the underground. That you're like, yeah, this dude's about the purist of the game, right? Then you have, the other side where you have people like me who ain't so much about the glitz and glamour, but who are like the streets, like who really are fans. I'm not saying that there aren't fans in the glitz and glamour, but that's more of the big show, the names that hit the headlights. But guys like myself are not so much on the purist side, but we're like in that street skating format. We're not quite underground, like, but we know like the names. Okay, we know who's the real players in the game, and we're students of the game. So he's got everybody. Nate Diaz is that legend, bro. Nate Diaz is a free agent now. He has such a long tenure. He has such respect. He has a great record in MMA. What is it? Either 29 or 30 in 10 something. He's got a phenomenal record. Yeah, he's got 10 losses, but nobody cares about the losses because he has so many. Like he's got such a story, and we know what he brings to the table. Is his skill and whatever, and he's made him into a great warrior, and we know his attitude, and he loves fighting, bro. And that's the thing. So this Jorge Masvidal versus Nate Diaz is so organic. It's just beautiful. So that's one of the 5 stories. Um, another one is, again, this whole we knew about it, but like it's finally coming to fruition. Like even Dana White and others can't stop it. The Tony Ferguson, Connor, and George St. Pierre, where we're finally like the UFC is losing its grip on MMA. Okay. And what do I mean by that? Is there was a time you had Pride fighting back like a decade ago, right? You do have Bellator, but they don't have. But when I mean losing the grip is Dana White and others, like they were controlling. Now it's become star powered, as all of them do. And this is the NFL's problem. This is now the current MLB problem. You need the stars, you need the recognition, and not manufactured. You need them organically. MMA, especially in the UFC, is become star driven. It's no longer Dana White. The matchups make themselves, and the fans are now waking up in MMA. They're stopped being lost in no. Oh yeah, Dana White's so great because he can just dictate the fights. No, let the fights make themselves. And stop putting impediments. Stop giving me these unnecessary interim champions. I understand if someone's hurt. Stop stripping belts. Okay? Give me who deserves to fight who. I don't mind so much in boxing where if they got a division, I don't necessarily like forced defenses, title defenses. I don't more so like that. But I understand why it's done in boxing because you also have so many belts and whatever. But boxing, again, the heavyweight division is regulating itself, right? You know, when you give guys like Andy Ruiz Jr. a shot, you know, so there's that. Instead of picking and choosing who deserves shots, how about you just let it dictate itself? Why is Tony Ferguson? He should have been fought. Hell, why did Khabib get it? Tony Ferguson should have fought Conor. I know that might be the unpopular take, but y'all forget how it was. Tony Ferguson has been overlooked for why has Tony Ferguson not had another title shot? Tony Ferguson should have been the one fighting Conor that night, not Khabib. But I'm always going to leave that alone. What else do we have that's a moving part to wrap things up? Another moving part is, that's new, a change, but not really a change. It's a return to old. UFC doesn't give a damn about the lighter divisions in the men's division. All right? Doesn't care. And now you're losing potentially 2 stars. And the flyweight is about to die. Didn't even know about a flyweight division until recently. That's how dead it was. But this just, it's news, but it's only news because I'm bringing it to y'all as this is a return to the original. Okay, this is showcasing that the UFC has flaws and cracks and cheats in armor, and there will be other competitors, or it's going to have to fix what it's due. It's business. The championship title is losing its value in the UFC. It's the same problem that the WWE has at times. The championship titles have to have meaning. You can say, well, that's pro wrestling. It's stated. Here's the thing. Fans don't care about that. We don't care if it's scripted or if it's how it's earned. We got to feel you earn that. We don't want it given. We don't want it stripped and taken away from those who don't deserve it. Dude won fair and square. He is the best. I don't care if he wants to go and fight another one. If you want to do this, how about doing this? You have interim champs, right? How about instead of interim champs, how about you do this? You say number 1 contender fights number 2 contender so we can see who has the right. How about that? Or number 5 contender fight number 8 contender. Something like that. You can set up fights without stripping a man of his title. So there's that. So these are both stories. Another stripping, that's what the issue Conor had. That's why we got the whole mess of Tony Ferguson, Khabib, and Conor to begin with. That's why. The 3 best in the division. That's why you had that nonsense. Okay? That's why you got the mess of John Bones Jones and Daniel Cormier. That's why you have that mess. It's irritating to me. As an MMA fan, it's like, why? You're making unnecessary problems. But no one is willing to call out Dana White and the UFC higher-ups for that nonsense. They've been doing this and it's biting them in the ass. And finally, the fighters are regulating it. All right? If that person who you think is the number 1 contender is better, fine. Don't force defenses. Go with a fight. And I talk about the erasure of a division. Again, I'm still waiting for that. I'm like Conor and a few others. I'm waiting for that middleweight division. That'll free up a lot of this nonsense. All right. You can say, well, why the middleweight division? Because the difference between the lightweight division and the light heavyweight or welterweight division makes no sense to me. Makes no sense to me. There's a reason, regardless if you think it's watered down in the boxing game, there's a reason that boxing introduced so many, I believe there's 17 divisions. Nobody has a problem with all the weight classes for the most part. I mean, it's you can say, well, this person, this one. Here's the thing. If you're really that damn good, either you dominate your division, your weight class, or you move up and you keep beating. You pull Floyd Money Mayweather Jr. who won, I believe, 5. You pull a Manny Pac-Man Pacquiao who won 8. You're gonna win regardless. But what you do is you give more opportunities. The middleweight division, it's like, why the hell did it take so long for them to was it featherweight division? I believe that Holly Holmes, Cyborg, Amanda Nunez, all of them fighting in. Then you have Amanda Nunez, possibly making her claim as the GOAT because she's a 2-time belt winner. You give people opportunity and you get better fights. Also, people don't have to cut as much and a whole other thing. And the last point about what's the fifth thing we've learned in this 2019, what's changed or what's been made more relevant and revealed is business. What is actually best for business? For the longest time, the UFC has been like going back and forth with what's actually best for business. Now I think we have more of an insight going into the 2020s as what's actually best for business. What's best for business is to actually follow what boxing learned over multiple decades. What do I mean by that? Promoting mega fights. That's one. Mega fights. Everyone wants to claim, oh, the super fight. Super fights don't just happen. They have to be manufactured. And as much as we hate, and I trust me, sometimes I think it takes too damn long for these super fights to happen. Like 5 years. They have to be manufactured organically as well as structured properly for everything. And it's a timing thing, right? Why was Holly, and which I consider a super fight, why was Holly Holm and Ronda Rousey a super fight? That it was the perfect timing. Because I had said Ronda Rousey, she has never faced an elite striker, a world class striker. Okay? That's what she did that night. Holly Holm, low key, actually had, number one, she had a legit MMA record. I think she was 10-0 at the time. As well as she's a former, boxing, kickboxing champion. All right now. Amanda Nunez versus Cyborg. Can't tell me that wasn't a super fight, ladies and gentlemen. That's what we come to see. Khabib versus Conor. Khabib versus Eddie Alvarez. Khabib versus Nate Diaz 2, which happened off of a fluke by one. We're like, we want to see this. Give the fans what they want to see. John Bones Jones versus DC. See what I'm saying? Some will argue Stipe versus DC if you're in that ilk. And there are other super fights. These are just a few examples. Conor versus Jose Aldo. These are super fights. They don't happen all the time, but they happen naturally and organically. And there usually has to be some kind of either some kind of animosity, like what was it? Marvelous Marvin Hagler versus Tommy Hitman Hearns back in the day, or something on the line. Animosity. The first two fights you mean between Hands of Stone and Sugar Ray. Back in the day. Or there has to be some reason as to why they're fighting. Cyborg versus Amanda Nunez. Because it was a historical fight. See what I'm saying? See what I'm saying? So, like I said, I need to do more of these videos. I know this video ran quite a long time, but this is more like, a whole show. And this is a culmination of what's been going on. We've learned very little, but we got a lot of revelations over this past year. Like I said, I wanted to see how this year panned out, and I thought it was a good time to start talking about it, as well as bringing more diversity to my channel. Unexpected, want to like, comment, subscribe. If you want to hear more conversations like this, if you want to hear more of me giving perspective, I can do boxing, I can do the NFL, I can do the NBA, and more. Just let me know, because I have a lot to say about a lot of what's going on out here in 2019. All right, y'all. Have a beautiful day, beautiful night. Peace.